The over-medicalization summit already happened. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is pushing changes to how we approach prescribing and deprescribing of psychiatric medications. And we're going to blow that shit up today. We are your whistleblowing shrinks, Dr. Teralyn and therapist Jenn, and this is the Gaslit Truth Podcast. Before we set this whole conversation ablaze, like, subscribe, ring that bell because supporting it matters.
And just remember, Dr. Teralyn and I, we are deprescribers. We actually know what the fuck we're doing. That's my tagline today. I'm just going to say that. Normally I do my nice little line
today.
Oh my God, I'm so worked up about this one. But we do. We actually know what we're doing. Not only do we understand psychopharmacology, not only do we understand the psychology behind deprescribing, not only do we understand the importance of lifestyle pillars and we are experts in brain health, we are also psych med harmed. We are the whole package.
The whole shebang-a-lang-a-ding-dong right here.
Damn, we know what the fuck we're doing. All right, so there's my tagline. All right.
So I do need to start off quick by, if you guys watched the over-medicalization summit, it's like 5 hours long. I think it's still available on YouTube. The majority of the people up there on that panel have been on the show.
Boom.
So boom,
right here.
They've all been here. And I wanted to give a big shout out to our listeners for supporting us, and to the guests for being on, because we helped build this movement in a big way behind the scenes. We gave it momentum. We gave people voice in all of this to be heard. And that's not a coincidence. That's where these conversations have been happening. So thank you so much for sharing and listening and all the things, because the Gaslit Truth Podcast was instrumental in giving these people a platform to speak, not just the people on the panel, but also the people who've been med harmed that have been on the show. So thank you so much for being on the show and for listening and doing all the things. We love you. Yes, that's it. That's my high horse for today. There we go.
Get it, girl.
Yes. All right. So we've got some stuff to talk about, because the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things. There's been a lot of chatter going on social media. There's been a lot of chatter going on in Jenn's head.
Oh, and man. I want to say this. I want to say this before we start, then we're going to dive into this.
Yeah.
Some of the conversation today, guys, may not come off in like we try our best to give a balanced approach. That is what Terry and I try to do on this show. We are going to bring the good side of things. We're going to bring the bad side of things, because the whole point of this is to be able to get curious about everything. I am going to put a caveat here today and say that some of this may lean a little bit more towards the what the hell is going on side of things, just because that's what's in my head today. And I don't ever want to eliminate hope for those of us who are med harmed and who have been going through withdrawal for years, and those of us who are trying to get off of these meds. I do not want to eliminate hope for that, because I think honestly, some days that's all I drive on is hope.
Right.
That's all I have, and I know a lot of people listening could say the same damn thing who are med harmed or trying to deprescribe and get off these meds. So some days that's all I have. However, I'm also a realist. And I also think that it's important to bring the truth to people and to look at all sides of things. And so some of this might lean in more of that realist, what might seem a little bit more pessimistic side of things.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
we'll see, guys. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah. Being in the situation that Jenn and I are in, also being, psychotherapists, we can see this from many different angles. But I wanted to start off by pointing this out. I never really in my lifetime, I truly felt that in my lifetime, this would never, psych med injury, informed consent conversations would never happen. I never thought that there would be any ounce of change at a government level, let alone at a population level, of these conversations while I was living. So there's that. To me, I'm just hopeful that these conversations can continue beyond this administration, right? So I hope, because Jenn and I have said this a million times, psych med injury doesn't fucking care who you vote for. It doesn't matter. Whether you are red or you are blue, you will be injured. So it doesn't care. It doesn't know your political affiliation. So I really hope that this can span across administrations forever. I hope that this stays there. So the conversation keeps rolling. But anyway, that was my high horse for the day.
No, and I think it's a good thing. I do think it's a good thing to say, because I never thought I would see it either. Years ago, when we started this process, there was very few voices. We were the lone wolves, right? I mean, hell, that's why we started this damn show, right? And so, okay. So what we're talking about today is on May 4th, Department of Health and Human Services launched MAHA's action plan, and it focused a lot on curbing psychiatric overprescribing. As somebody who's worked for the Department of Health and Human Services for many years, we can also probably talk a little bit about that within this. But what we're going to talk about is that plan. We're going to incorporate not only that information that came out, but also some of the information that Terry was just mentioning. You can watch this entire thing on YouTube if you want to watch it. Mm-hmm. We have reviewed and watched some of that. There is action letters that have gone out to prescribers, which is we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that means. The Dear Colleague letter. We're going to incorporate as much of the information into this episode today as we've been able to find, so that we can kind of bring an approach that's a little more balanced. So, all right, so let's talk about this plan that went out. And yes, nobody cares. Psychiatric meds don't give a shit about who you vote for. So let's start by eliminating the whole red and blue piece of this and all of the bullshit that is going on right now out on social media about how this we have lost the message.
The message is gone. It's really interesting to me because I think most people knew that MAHA was kind of behind the scenes in all of this, and that means
RFK's been talking about this for a while.
Right.
This is not new stuff, guys.
This is not new. And so if you're in the med injured area, this is a lot of people that I've been seeing, and I've gotten messages about we just didn't need him to be the messenger. I'm like, well, who did you want then? Literally, who did you want? I would have been the messenger, sure, but I don't have any clout. So
nobody called Jenn and was like, "Hey, you guys are the experts.
Could you be the messenger for this?
Could you deliver?" We would have been all over that.
Right. But also, I just want to point this out, and Jenn, you'll know this working in the government. We both have, because the biggest criticism is, he's not a medical doctor, so how dare he speak on this? And I'm like, the majority of people on that panel were not medical doctors. They weren't even psychiatrists on the panel. Right. So, but and I tell this to people, most people that run hospital systems or any other government agencies or whatever, they're overseeing the whole thing, are not medical doctors, yet they are working in medical environments. So I feel like I'm defending it, but I am and I'm not, because I'm theoretically, it makes sense that someone would be an MD, but he's not even calling the shots. He's just the mouthpiece for the whole thing. I'm there's a lot of really smart people that are working behind the scenes on this, but they're also missing some marks that Jenn and I are going to talk about.
Holes.
Yeah, there's some big holes here that we're going to be talking about. But so for us, it's not we're not going to be debating the messenger here, because whatever. If that's what you're worried about is the messenger, then
you're missing the point. And we're not going to respond to comments about it being the messenger either, because this isn't a political thing. Again, Psych Med Harm doesn't give a shit who you vote for. Okay, that's not what this is about.
Jenn used to run units, guys, and she's not an MD.
Yeah, in fact, I was about ready to be the next level up in the prison system and actually running the prison system. And guess what?
She's not an MD.
I don't have no MD, but I would have been overseeing all the medical departments, the psychological departments, the security departments, the release department, all of the things. So, all right, this is how government works, guys. So, all right, a little public service message. Okay, all right. So let's dive into this. So
where do you want to start, Jenn?
All right, let's start with a letter that has been put out and published, where HHS is encouraging providers to prioritize informed consent, making shared decision making with the patients, regularly reviewing risks and benefits of psych med harm with their patients. Okay, this letter that came
crazy to me. Hold on. That's crazy to me because they're supposed to be doing that already. All this stuff is supposed to be happening. Honest to God, informed consent is a legal obligation of providers.
Right.
And ethical, but legal and ethical. So
we are putting correspondence out. So here's HHS in the background having to go, all right, we got to start at the beginning again. We're going to re-educate you on what ethics looks like within prescribing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
All right. It sucks. It's a reality. It's sad. This is where we're starting. So we're not actually starting. We're starting from the beginning. I mean, it's a very infant space, honestly, if you think about it. But it's the reality of it, guys. And everybody listening to the show and anybody who has been harmed by medications or by the medical community knows damn well one of the first things that you never got was informed consent.
Informed consent. Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So then this letter also talks about like non-medication approaches, psychotherapy, nutrition, movement, physical activity, right? When it's clinically appropriate. And then it goes on to talk about billing codes, which we probably won't get into too much of that BS today, but a lot of billing codes that are listed that could possibly be utilized by different professions. Like Terry and I as therapists, we're not allowed to use any of those billing codes. They don't exist.
Which is hilarious, Jen, because they're listed in the paragraph where they start off with psychotherapy billing codes, which are the standard billing codes for a 30-minute 45-minute and 60-minute appointment. And then they go in to say there's billing codes for nutritional therapy. And I'm like, well, can we use those?
No, we're not allowed to, actually.
Right.
So we can't.
Right.
So I think that leads us kind of into talking about what we can see is going to happen because of some of the bigger holes in this action plan.
Therapists are fucked. We're just going to get to it. Like, therapists are fucked. Like that's what's going to happen. I'm super passionate about this because I put a couple posts out on social media about it too. And I said, therapists are not prepared for the mass amount of responsibility that they're going to have. I've been calling them therapists as gatekeepers, and people are like, therapists can't prescribe. I'm like, that's not what a gatekeeper does. Therapists assess you to go to the next level, which is medication. And they are not skilled in any of this stuff. None of it. I mean, Jen and I are, because we did it ourselves. Like we are DIY projects, y'all. Like, this is not something aside from basic psychopharmacology that we had to take for a licensure years ago, and CEUs that we decided to take,
and to get the addiction add-on, so we could have the addiction
add-on had to do psychopharmacology, not the mental health stuff. Did you guys all hear that? In order for us to get a specialty license to help people with addictions, y'all are going to hate that, we had to take psychopharmacology, right? We didn't have to take that to get our licensure for mental health treatment, just addiction treatment. What the fuck is that? Like, that is, if not for that, I wouldn't have taken that class. I would not have, but I was required to. I was required to.
We had to do that.
Then I took CEUs and stuff like that. But most people, because it's not written in curriculums, don't even take psychopharm.
No.
So, which I have always felt like that's been a hole in our curriculums because we are the right-hand person for psychiatry, especially when you're dealing with systems like prisons and hospitals and things like that, and county funded stuff. So, yeah.
So what HHS is doing here, all right, that's okay. This is what we got to keep each other on track today. So what HHS is doing is they're encouraging clinicians and like provider organizations, and I'm reading from this letter, guys. You can view this online too, okay, to support treatment approaches that are grounded in like shared decision making, right? So we have decisions that are going to be made between the patient and the prescriber. Well, yeah. Okay. Again, we're like, I'm just reading this going, and
listen, shared decision making is not going into the doctor's office and the doctor asking you what med you want to take. Yes. That has been conflated to mean that. That is not that. Anyway,
patient autonomy, fully informed consent. I got this. Okay. So individuals need to receive clear, understandable information. So the whole point of this letter is to say to prescribers, one, you need to have a patient-centered approach and work with the patient, okay, when you've got a patient that is considering going off, doesn't matter, anything with a psychiatric medication. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. We learned that. That was the first class we ever learned, okay? So we're having to bring back the basics, guys, okay? That's all, okay. So then... individuals also need to receive clear, understandable information about benefits and risks of psych meds at initiation. We're talking first appointment, giving them understandable information about that, and also during treatment and when discontinuation is being considered. Okay. Discontinuation should be considered at the first conversation. Okay. Yep. So there's a hole here already that's continuing that narrative
that's not informed consent if you're doing it all later.
No, it's all at that very first space is here's what you're considering, risks, benefits, alternatives. And if you want to do this, what's our action plan for getting off? And how do you know when it's time to get off. Okay. So, guys, these conversations would take hours, not your 18-minute appointment that you get with your provider. There are big systemic issues that are going to go into this. We're not going to go into it today, but that's a thing. We all know that the average patient provider appointment is between 15 and 18 minutes in the United States. Okay.
Yes.
So
I want to add on here, if y'all want to know what that does not sound like, go listen to our episode called The Dirty 30, because the dirty 30 is 30 ways that we manipulate people into compliance and all the things Jenn was talking about, because there's going to be providers saying, we already do all those things. And no, you don't. You do the dirty 30. So that's what you're doing. So anyway, plug for the dirty 30.
Plug with the dirty 30. Okay. So it talks about what the discussions should all include. It talks about like evidence-based, non-pharmacological interventions when relevant. Okay, and it kind of goes into what some of those things can be. So one of the biggest holes in this correspondence is if we go back to the beginning of this. All right, we have providers who are now finally they're being kind of given a slap on the wrist, going, we need to go back to ethics 101. We need to go back to informed consent 101. We need to go back to patient-centered care 101, which the psychiatrists that we have had on the show have talked about how that has been lost. That's one of the biggest holes because of the systemic issues that exist. They're not given time to be able to do that. And the rogue people went, well, fuck it, then I'm going to start my own practice and give people time to do that. Okay,
right.
So
and people don't like that because they cost more.
Yeah,
so
yeah. But guess what you're getting? You're this average most of what is this letter, because providers actually can't do this with the time constraints that exist. Okay, so shiny and pretty, it's not actually possible. Point that out. And that's where Terry started to talk about like therapists as the gatekeeper, because what happens when the prescribers don't have the time to do these things, just like prescribers don't have the time to go through like the psychotherapy pieces of this. They were all educated in it, by the way. That's real. They were taught that, but they don't have the capacity and the time and the ability to do it. Now they're making a choice in that, but that's another thing. So what happens? Who's it fall on? It starts to fall on the therapists, because that's what we do. You get the pleasure of having us for an hour, sometimes every single week. You get
sometimes,
us
or more,
or more, a couple times a week. Absolutely. So the piece that's not addressed in this correspondence is how much the therapists, the mental health professionals, need to know about all of this.
This is a systemic problem, Jenn, with therapists, because we are never considered in the bigger picture.
And we're not in this either. We're not in this either. MAHA has left us out.
Yeah, MAHA has left out therapists. And even when you think about all the panels that people are doing, and when you watch there's no therapists on that panel. Well, there's one from Denmark, Anders, and he's a great person. I love
we
Anders,
can't forget about it. Yeah.
Right. But other than that,
shout out to Anders.
There's no therapist voices that you are hearing in MAHA at all. It's all prescribers or consumers. That's it. Again, that huge gap. But yet they're calling it out and saying that therapists are going to have this huge role. Like this big role is going to be a therapist role, but yet we're not going to include them in how that's going to look for them. I don't know. Do they think that we already understand all of it, or what? Like what? I don't understand, because we don't, and therapists are already the gatekeepers in many respects to medication. I think that's a fear-based thing. I think they see somebody come in who's struggling and they don't know what to do with them. So they say, maybe you need medication, right? Like they don't have confidence in their own skills and abilities. So then they push you off into getting medication, right? So I think we already do that in some respects, but also if something's going wrong, or you perceive something to go wrong with somebody who's already medicated, what do? Send them back. We don't work through that. We send them back, right, to their psychiatrist or their prescriber. That's it. We're already doing those dumb things, right? We're already doing those things, but there's a call in here for, therapy, lifestyle interventions, behavior change, medical nutrition therapy, initial nutrition assessments and interventions. There's a call for all of this. Where the fuck is that going to happen? In a therapist's office? Like, it should be that, again, nutrition should be part of a therapist training, I believe, at least basic shit,
Oh, yes.
so
And
yeah,
guys, it's not though, right?
it's not.
So if
Any
you think that
nutrition
it
stuff I've
is,
learned it by myself. Like,
well, we learned it
again,
on the side,
we
yes.
learned it on
And
the
we're
side.
and one of the other things that we are told to kind of stay in our lane within and to stay out of, because we are not
We're always told to
nutritionists.
stay in our lane and
Yeah.
get out of
Yeah,
other
get
people's
out.
lanes.
So
Get out.
so the systemic issues, I at least think, are the bigger holes that need to be addressed first. I don't think that putting together an action plan that focuses on, let's educate the providers on what informed consent is. Okay, let's educate the prescribers on other holistic, non-pharmacological interventions and offerings that are out there. Okay, I don't think that how is that going to no, right? Like how I think we're addressing, I actually
How
think
is that gonna change 7 minutes? Well, how is
we're
that gonna
addressing the
change
wrong thing.
7 minutes? Yeah, how is that gonna change a 7-minute conversation in a doctor's office? Like,
It's
if you go
not.
to your prescriber and you get, 7 to 10 minutes, he's supposed to do nutritional interventions and all these things. Like, again, therapists are the ones who have the conversation the longest with people. I don't
Yes.
know how if anyone's out here is a dietitian, how long are those appointments? I have no idea. Have you ever been to a dietitian?
No, I
I
haven't.
haven't.
We've
I
had
have no
people on
idea
the
how long
show.
it
We should
yeah, we need to.
we should,
I have no idea how long a
probably ask them.
dietitian is in that office visit is, and are they aware of medication stuff with psychopharmacology? Probably, I'm gonna argue not. I'm gonna argue that they're more about diabetes and, weight loss and stuff like that, not psych med harm or prescribing or deprescribing. So, yeah, I don't know how this is gonna change shit. Like, I don't know. They're listing all these CPT codes for new codes to be able to use. Like, but it doesn't say. It just says practitioners can use this. So I'm going to argue everybody can. The practitioner should be aware that a number of non-pharmacological services relevant to behavioral health care may already be covered when appropriate. And here's all of them. And it's, I don't know, who can use it? Practitioners can, I guess. I should try it, Jen. What if I tried a CPT code on somebody, a 97802 for medical nutrition therapy? Wonder what would happen.
Well, the letter also indicates that there's going to be codes that are going to be specific that will be reimbursed by Medicare for deprescribing. Okay.
Which is weird. Isn't
And
prescribing like the same as like I know it's not the same, but I mean, as far as you're still prescribing, you're whether you go
right.
up or down, you're still prescribing, right? Like, I don't understand. Unless it's more money. I don't know. Or you can use it more frequently.
Well,
I don't know.
the action plan within here talks about moving toward more education and outreach. It talks about
Again, who's going to do that?
bringing out reporting on prescribing trends and looking at that to reduce inappropriate prescribing. I'm not sure that's the place to start. Inappropriate prescribing is going to be at the discretion of the prescriber. So if a prescriber is viewing prescriptions as a treatment and not a drug, it will
Right.
always be appropriate. So
Right.
it's almost like we have to go back even farther in the process of this. It's like education and outreach needs to start not only in the prescriber office, right? Because we have to hit up the people who are already doing this, but it's got to go back into the curriculums. Like,
Yes.
to me, that's where we have such a big hole.
Mhm.
The curriculums need to include that for your medical doctors, your prescribers. It also needs to include deprescribing and the psychology of deprescribing for our clinicians that are out there,
Mhm.
our licensed clinical social workers, our licensed professional counselors, our psychotherapists. That needs to become part of the start of it there.
Because you're right. Anybody that's prescribing is thinking they're prescribing appropriately.
Right.
Like, who's out there just willy-nilly I mean, they are, but because they did it, they're gonna say, "Yes, this was an appropriate." Like, is it appropriate, Jen, for you to be prescribed an antidepressant when you were 17 years old because your boyfriend broke up with you? Is that appropriate? Well, yes, because she was feeling depressed, right?
Mhm.
Was it appropriate for me to be prescribed something as a preventative for postpartum depression?
Right.
Well, no. I mean,
Right.
that's really not a thing.
Is it
Yeah.
appropriate to prescribe because you offered a prescription that may or may not have side effects to it? So we're going to give you a stimulant. It's likely that that stimulant is going to create more anxiousness for you. It's likely it's going to change the metabolic state of your body. So we're actually going to give you a benzo as well to manage the anxiety, just in case. So we're going to start you on both
Is that
at the same
appropriate?
time. Same time. No,
Yeah, I mean,
none of that. Right.
the word appropriate is
Right.
the kicker here. Like, because anyone can argue my intervention was appropriate. It was clinically supported by me, therefore it was appropriate.
Right.
So I don't know. This is interesting. And again, what I'm hearing, the psychiatrist going, well, we already do all these things. Like we already know how to deprescribe somebody safely, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, then where are you? You did this in 2022 when, Moncrief put the nail in the coffin finally on the chemical imbalance myth. And all these psychiatrists are coming out going, we've always known it's not been a chemical imbalance. And I'm like, really though? Really?
Right.
Where have you been? Because as psychiatrists, your voices are the biggest in all of this. And I realize that psychiatrists aren't the only ones prescribing, but they should be the ones out there yapping their mouth off about, problems in prescribing. They should be leading this charge. They really should. But all they do is that Shaggy wasn't me. I've never done that. We always knew something different.
Everybody, she's quoting Shaggy right
Shaggy.
now. This is happening right. I'm so proud of you. You know who Shaggy is. That was like so early 2000s.
I know.
Okay. So the National Institute of Health and the FDA are also, it says they're expediting some research into new innovative treatments for mental health conditions. Okay. So our research dollars are going to go into innovative treatments for mental health conditions.
Such as?
So when I think about that, okay, the innovative treatments that we have out there, okay.
Innovative. I like that word.
I know. So let's throw some words on this, right? So treatments for mental health conditions. So we're talking about nutritional therapy for psychosis. We're talking about amino acid work for neurotransmitter balances and optimizing pathways. We're talking about women's health and hormone assessment and what that actually looks like when we're balancing out hormones versus, oh, you have PMDD, here's an antidepressant. Okay.
Right.
We're talking about like mind and body and somatic work. We're talking biohacking. We're talking peptides. We're talking everything Terry and I have on this show. Right. Like, damn, if they wanted, we could
just send them the show.
Research dollars. Here's the deal. It's out there. It already is there. We're gonna fund. I feel like I'm on like a public TV show right now. I like for radio shows. So it sounds like I'm on public radio. And this is NPR in Wisconsin right now. Everybody, I need to get my ass on there. But we're putting our money into something that is already existing, guys. That stuff is out there. We don't need innovative treatment. That shit exists. It's out there. We do some of it in our practice. So what?
I think we just need to mainstream it. I think some of this just needs to be mainstreamed.
Here's the deal though, but that innovative stuff, that's the stuff that goes in the education realm. That's the stuff that goes in the curriculums. That's the stuff that comes out of the providers' mouths. So they're going to need to understand this before we go to psychiatric treatment. Now, these things are also the things that people will need to do to get off of their meds.
Every last bit of it.
Every bit of it. And so that's where then this type of time and energy and what's needed cannot be done in a prescriber's office. So once again, it's going to fall to the specialties. It's going to fall to the nutritionists. It's going to fall to the holistic practitioners that are out there that said, bye, peace out, like Dr. Kendra Campbell's of the world, who went and did their own thing as prescribers because they're into the let's get you off. And we have to do it holistically. Holistically, it's going to fall to the therapists. It's going to fall to those of us who have deprescribing practices like Terry and I, who this is all we do. The science of deprescribing, that part's easy.
Oh yeah, that we've said this a million times.
That part's easy,
The math, I hate math, but it's easy. Like all of that is easy. The underpinnings and the psychology and the supporting someone's lifestyle and getting through is hard. That's the harder part.
And trying all of these different treatments, different things that you can do, whether it's through the peptides, whether it's through the aminos, whether we're looking at red light therapy, whether we're like,
well, and guess what,
things.
everybody? Guess who gets paid the least in all of this, but has, like, in my opinion, the biggest job is a therapist in all of this, and we get paid nothing. So go to a psychiatrist for your 15 minutes. I have no idea how much that psychiatrist is getting paid. Sometimes up to $500 they bill insurances.
Yep.
Come to a therapist and, we'll walk out with our $60 for an hour, for a full hour to see you and to know all of this stuff. Like the amount of knowledge that a therapist is going to have to know is astronomical. It took me decades to learn this stuff. Like this isn't going to be a one class of CEUs and you're good to go.
You mean spending like a whole semester learning about Freud wasn't helpful?
No.
Oh.
What? Oh, man, who's your theoretical orientation?
I can't with you right now. Okay, so part of what Terry and I wanted to bring to fruition today, right? And I know a lot of it sounded negative, guys, but this is the reality of some of this, right? This is the reality of where research to practice dollars are going. Now, again, this is what we're given. This is based off of watching that panel go, the information that has been released. Okay, and as you and I all know, and we preach so much on the show, you can only take what you're given as a grain of salt because we're missing stuff. We're missing stuff, but as the public, we have to try to generate opinion based off of what we're given. Okay, so here's what research to practice looks like and where the dollars are going. Here's where like the clinical practice and patient care change is. This is the route that is going. This is where the education is going to be funneled and the dollars are going to be funneled to is a technical expert panel that's going to come out in July that's going to gather input from people like Terry and I. Ding, ding. Why don't you give us a call? Exactly. Government agencies, families, right? Which I think this part of this, I think is the best part. Why don't you go to the source? Go to the people who know things. Go to the people who are harmed. The people who are harmed are going to give you more information on this than any triple board certified Harvard grad in the face of Mark Horowitz said it himself when he put his book together. His deprescribing advice came from truck drivers, attorneys, housewives.
Yes.
This is where it came from. So I like that. So to me, I'm going to give a little heart on that one because
I did like the over medicalization panel too. I think there was some really good stories in there that really hit home for a lot of people. So there's that. I like the idea that this is taking off. There is momentum here. But like with anything else, there are going to be gaps. And I'm really fearful that the biggest gap is going to be with psychotherapists and social workers, right? Because they practice psychotherapy too, or psychologists. I'm really fearful that those are the gaps and we're going to pay the price for that. Or nothing's going to change, right? Because we've been tasked with these things that we are not prepared for and we've been left out of the conversation. As far as like education like behind it, because we should know more than we do, but we don't. When you're talking about the school stuff, like it's still in there. The gold standard written in textbooks, the gold standard is medication and therapy. Like it's written in all of these textbooks. And so unless that changes, like to a different conversation and how a therapist can support somebody. Jenn and I've talked about this. Why is it any different supporting somebody coming off of antidepressants than it is supporting someone coming off of alcohol?
Heroin.
I'm not saying mechanism of action or any of that bullshit. I'm just saying like you want to come off of something, a therapist's job should be to support that, whatever that decision making is for you. And we have to learn how to support someone coming off of heroin or alcohol or any of these things because it's different. And so we need to learn the differences here too, and we don't know them.
No.
Nor has there been conversation to include us in those differences. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a long way to go here, Jenn. There's a long way to go.
As I said when we started, as we wrap up, it felt like this might be a kind of a soul-sucking kind of an episode, right? Because there isn't a shit ton of positivity, right? Like there's a few little blurps in here. we don't want to let go of hope, because hope is what
Mhm.
drives some of us every single day. I mean, it's literally what makes me wake up almost every day for almost 3 years straight now of trying to get off of a med. And I'm not
Mhm.
trying to make it about me, but damn, I know a lot of you listening out there, and a lot
She's
of you have been
weaky right
harmed.
now. She's
I am.
weaky.
Like, I read this and my excitement fizzled so quickly, right? When I actually went into the detail of it. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what it's about, though, guys, is we need to know all the sides. We need to know all the things. It's important to know where the dollars are going. It's important to know the action plan. It's important to know what your therapists and your prescribers were never taught.
Yeah.
It's
Ask them.
important
Start
for you
talking
to
to
know
them
that.
about it. Mhm.
Yeah. And that's what really it boils back down to, is how to be an empowered patient.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
I like that.
So, all right, as we wrap this up, guys, we are the Gaslit Truth Podcast. Thank you for listening to us and getting through our soapbox today. And if any of you want to analyze Terry and I, you can see all the moments in today's episode where one of us kept the other on track, and then the other brought the other back on track, and then the other brought the other, because this is something we care about, we're passionate about, and we are the platform. We were the start for those MAHA voices on that panel. The Gaslit Truth Podcast we were a start, and we don't need the accolades. We don't need all of that.
Yeah, we do. We need the comments and the love and the support from everybody.
We need you guys, we need the listeners to know that this is you, because we can't do
Mhm.
this without you. It wouldn't exist without you. If our numbers don't grow, we're not doing things. If people aren't listening, we're not moving forward on the show. So
Mhm.
you guys really are the reason for this. The people that have come on the show, yes, give the hearts. Like, that's why we're here. And we want our voice, guys, to be bigger than it is. And
Mhm.
we can't do it without you. If you want us to be sitting on a MAHA panel, for the love of God, so we have to grow, because for some reason, it's probably because we're so rogue, we're not big enough yet to be in these spaces.
They're
But
right.
we want to be, because that's the whole point we started the Gaslit Truth
Mhm.
Pod. That is the whole point of this fucking show. This is what. So
Yeah.
I
And
gotta
if
say
you
that.
I just want to tell people, like, if you see a therapist and you're interested in the med stuff, send them this episode, because I think this episode might open up some eyes as to what we're going to be up against. So as
Yeah.
therapists, we need to do a better job of banding together
We do.
and creating our own movement here. So yeah, to stay
Yep.
in the conversations at least.
Yep, we've got to
Mhm.
be in it. We have to be in it. So, all right,
Mhm.
guys, thanks for staying with us. Please go
Please.
on, give us some love, give us all the stars. And if you need to send us your Gaslit Truth stories, or you are interested in working with Dr. Teralyn or I in deprescribing, please send us a email at thegaslittruthpodcast@gmail.com. And make sure you subscribe.